Good afternoon. Good afternoon. As you know, we run these programs on time, so please continue eating, and we will make sure that this event also ends on time. My name is Peter Rollins, and along with our Chancellor, Father Monin, and the Dean of our Carroll School, Amy Boynton, I welcome you to the sunny Chief Executive Club of Boston. Also, in addition to the print media here today, I would like to give a special welcome to Bloomberg TV, New England Cable News TV, WCBB TV, as well as BC's own Front Row. Welcome. You don't have to applaud for the meeting. We continue to be humbled by the number of prominent private sector chairman, presidents, and managing partners who attend these events, as well as some of our more enlightened public officials. First, I would like to recognize our outstanding former governor, the Honorable Jane Swift. Jane? The President of Massport, Craig Coy. Craig? Our bright and articulate Secretary of Mass Office of Economic Development, Ranch Kimball. Ranch? And my choice for the best state treasurer in the United States, Tim Kagan. We have a very special guest, last year's Big East Basketball Coach of the Year, and this year's coach of the ACC, the NCAA Sweet 16 Boston College Eagles, head coach Al Skinner. And a man who we hope is not here on a recruiting assignment, the CEO of the Boston Celtics, Wick Rousbeck. And finally, the iconic owner of the New England Patriots, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, our own living legend, Bob Kraft. There are 19 additional companies who have joined with us since we last met. ACG Boston, Board of Registration in Medicine, Citigroup, DMI Technology, EduSalt, Fox Development, Gelb & Gelb, IPAC, Lease Investments, Marcom Links, Massachusetts Turnpike Authority, Next Boston, Oyster International, Prockhauser Rose, Special Olympics of Massachusetts, Step Ahead Consulting, Tatum Partners, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, and Weber Shandwick Worldwide. Welcome to the Chief Executive Club of Boston. As you can see, we are just about at capacity. So if you haven't joined, you should do so now. And a reminder, it is our club policy not to accept substitute attendees. So please keep that in mind to avoid future obstructed view seating. Citizen CEO Larry Fish has brought a special guest with him today who is here to see what makes us tick. The president of the world-famous Detroit Economic Club, Beth Chappelle. Beth? And also observing us again is Burson Marstella's ranking guru, and that would be a ranking guru, Carol Bullock. And I ask that those members sitting beside Carol talk us up, if you're willing to do that. For those of you who wish to mark your calendars, we will next gather at a special Boston College Citizen Seminar Luncheon right here on June 7th, where we will listen to and discuss the culmination of the recent ideas on our region's competitiveness. The program will feature Sovereign Bank's John Hamill, the Boston Fed's Kathy Minahan, the Boston Foundation's Paul Grogan, and Tad Purcell's second favorite publisher, the Boston Globe's Richard Gilman. That would be his second favorite. Future confirmed club speakers include NASDAQ's Bob Riefeld, who will be hosted by our potential first man of the Commonwealth, Sean Healy. Followed by ExxonMobil's Rex Tillerson, who will be hosted by Bob Kraft, and the New York Times CEO, Janet Robinson. Pat, that hosting opportunity is available. I know, so stay tuned. Finally, you should all know that a 4-year academic scholarship was presented moments ago to a deserving Boston College undergraduate student, and the scholarship bears the name of our keynote speaker. A special thank you to Pat Stokes, who is both chairman of the Board of Trustees of BC and the CEO of Anheuser-Busch. He has made this possible. So the Bob Iger Scholarship winner is Patrick Donlin. Congratulations, Patrick, and please stand. And now let me thank Bob Davis for hosting this special occasion and invite Bob to the podium to introduce our keynote speaker. Bob.
Thank you, Peter. And in the Disney-esque form, I should say welcome cast members today. Hey, what a privilege I have to introduce the leader of a media powerhouse that's become synonymous with happiness. It's one of those few companies that all of us can look at fondly through our own personal experiences. I had the good fortune of being in Disney World just last month with my 11-year-old son. Nice father and son trip that we took together, and I'm pleased to report that Disney magic remains in force, because you really think about it. What other company out there could pull me into this 500-acre asphalt park in 90-degree heat, make me wait in line for 2 hours to use their product, suck dollars out of my pocket all day long? And while all this is going on, I'm singing Zippity-Doo-Dah and thinking that Ariel and Aladdin would have been good names for my kids. Right? But, well, that's the magic of Disney, a company that lets us all dare to dream and be young again. And as you know, this global conglomerate is a lot more than just theme parks and resorts. It includes a great household brand as ESPN, ABC, Touchstone, Miramax, Hollywood Records, the History Channel, and A&E, to name a few. And now to our guest of honor. I doubt he remembers this, but I first had the good fortune to spend time with Bob about 8, 9, maybe even 10 years ago at a conference we were both attending in Santa Barbara. And he and I and Charlie Rose had dinner after that. And we spent a lot of time discussing the internet and the convergence of media platforms. And frankly, he understood it in a way that few other traditional media executives began to at that era. And from that moment on, I realized that this man was something special. He was a man with a vision and a man with the guts to make it happen. He began his career in ABC in 1974, and over the last 32 years has held a variety of executive roles, including president and COO of Cap Cities ABC, where he guided that complex merger into the Walt Disney Company. Afterwards, he became chairman of the Disney-owned ABC Group in 1996. Since 2000, he served as president and COO of the Walt Disney Company. Today, Bob is president and CEO of the Walt Disney Company, just the 6th CEO in the storied 82-year history of this firm. And as CEO, he's wasted no time in making things happen. He's turned network TV upside down in his first days on the job. We laid the groundwork for hypercharged revenue stream. We kept the industry's first deal to download premium content through the internet, traditional programming to the internet. In January, we restored a critical relationship with a $7.5 billion acquisition of Pixar. And on top of that, in the most recent quarter, we saw Disney profits jump 12%. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pride to introduce Bob Iger.
Bob, thank you very much. I hope you return to Disney World and have another great time there. Have one of our happiest places on earth. I thought I'd begin today with a short quiz for all of you. And maybe it's a bit of an intelligence test. What company has boiled 42 metric tons, that's 92,954 pounds of Chinese noodles in the last 10 months? What company is the largest children's publisher in the world, producing more than 200 million books, including the top-selling kids magazine in China? What company produces a stage play that has been seen by 33 million people around the world? What company serves more than 50 million Cokes, 10 million hamburgers, 7 million hot dogs, 9 million pounds of French fries, and more than 300,000 pounds of popcorn in the last 12 months? And what company has produced the #1 Halloween costume for 4 years running? So if you answered the Walt Disney Company, no surprise to all 5 questions, you're definitely someone who appreciates the scope of the Walt Disney Company. The Walt Disney Company is a remarkable and diversified collection of assets, as Bob mentioned, with entertainment products that reach nearly every corner of the world. The statistics that I referenced are indeed impressive, but all the more so when you consider that I'm responsible for delivering continued growth over the long term. Because today, I think I'd want to focus a little bit for all of you on how we're strategically positioning ourselves and give you a sense of what we see as Disney's future. It's not just in selling Coca-Cola and hot dogs. First, I want to start by stating how much Disney values its relationship with Boston. When you think of a city that is home to the Walt Disney Company, I'm guessing you're probably thinking of Anaheim, where Disneyland is, or Orlando, which is where Walt Disney World is, or Burbank, our corporate headquarters. But not for me. I think it's Boston, because in many ways Boston is our most valued market because it ranks as the #1 city in the world for ownership of Disney stock. More than 223 million shares, representing 11% of our company, are owned by investors based in Boston. So you can see Boston is my kind of town. I didn't start by telling you that I'm a New Yorker originally, and I'm a diehard Yankee fan, but that's another story. You do have the last or most recent World Series ring in that rivalry, so I congratulate you for that. For some context regarding our strategic direction, I'd like to offer you some perspective on the environment, emphasizing the media landscape, which is pretty interesting in today's world. In today's world, businesses face a mix of rapidly expanding developing markets and competition, technological change and shifts in consumer behavior that open the door to both considerable opportunities as well as a number of challenges. The shift in the balance of power to consumers has had a dramatic impact on Disney's businesses, and in the not-too-distant past, there was a great debate in our industry over whether content or distribution was king. Well, in our view, the consumer is now king. Today, consumers have far more control over where, when, and how they consume media. And with the shift in authority to the end user, the rules that once governed how, when, and at what price content is being accessed are all being challenged. I think what happened in the music industry is probably the best example of this point. By focusing on protective legislation rather than on marketplace dynamics and a compelling consumer proposition, the music industry managed to lose billions of dollars during the period of 2000 to 2003. Actually, about 20% of its revenue disappeared in those 3 years. In the competition for distribution market share, convenience, user-friendly interfaces, and simple, easy-to-use platforms with an array of leading well-priced content will win over more complicated devices. Technology is also placing greater emphasis on the portability of media, as well as the need for customization and personalization. So remaining slave to fixed media consumption would be, in our eyes, a big mistake. Consumers want the ability to better integrate their media platforms, whether in one location or in multiple locations, and are using wireless options to drive multiple device networking. I'm sure that's the case in many of your lives. Media choices have also proliferated, whether from traditional media like television, movies, or video games, or whether from newer media like the internet, wireless platform-driven content and experiences, from chats to blogs, and podcasts, to all forms of community and commerce designed to move both physical and digital goods. This intense competition will place greater value on brands and quality entertainment experiences, resulting in a larger disparity between what is good and what is inferior. Now, economists predict that the economies of India and China will grow 2 to 4 times the rate of the West. So at Disney, we're already seeing improving trends in our businesses in China and India, including the rise of the middle class and a much greater interest among these governments to relax regulations to encourage travel, tourism, and trade. Economic growth is leading a more sophisticated array of channels of distribution, expanded leisure time, and an increase in disposable income to spend on entertainment activities. And so at Disney, we believe the majority of the changes that I just outlined are creating opportunities for us today and will continue to create opportunities for us in the long run. And to best take advantage of this potential, we have put 3 common strategic priorities in place across all of our businesses to drive growth and long-term shareholder value. And those are creativity and innovation. That's to fuel our efforts in the area of creating quality branded content, something that really forms the backbone of the Walt Disney Company and has for decades. The second strategic priority is the application of technology to accomplish 2 things. One, to enhance our content and the experience you have when you consume that content, and secondly, to extend distribution. And then the third, international expansion to grow our businesses, particularly in developing nations that are offering new markets for entertainment, including China and India, as I mentioned earlier. These priorities were established at Disney around the time that I became CEO, and I'm extremely pleased at how quickly and successfully they are being adopted across the company. So at Disney, our number 1 priority is to allocate capital in the direction of high-quality branded content and to deliver it to consumers all over the world through both traditional and new distribution methods. Nothing speaks to this point more than our acquisition of Pixar, as Bob mentioned, which reflects our commitment to quality and our commitment to greatly enhance our efforts in our most important business, which is feature animation. Feature animation created more value for the Walt Disney Company over its 82-year history than any of our other businesses, and it's vital that feature animation be successful in the company. We all know that Pixar came with award-winning people, great talent, great creative people, as well as great stories, characters, and technology. For those of you who may not be familiar with Pixar, I'm sure a lot of you have watched their movies. Toy Story is one of them, Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, just to name a few. The creative innovation at Pixar and the team of outstanding animators is now going to contribute meaningfully to Disney because that group is now running Disney Animation as well. And we believe the addition of Pixar will give us the ability to guarantee success in animation, something I mentioned earlier that's vital to the company long term. The next movie up from Pixar, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a bit of a commercial message here, is a movie called Cars, which opens up in movie theaters on June 9th and promises to be one of the more successful movies of the summer. The level of innovation that's reflected in this film, which you'll get a chance to see, hopefully, is unlike anything audiences have experienced in the past, which is made all the more remarkable thanks to the quality of their storytelling and the inventive characters in this film. I've mentioned a few times we're fundamentally a content company, but content only has value if it can be distributed to consumers in a ubiquitous method through theaters, cable, satellite, mobile telephones, all kinds of new platforms, including broadband, internet connectivity, and also through retail outlets around the world. Technology is presenting enormous opportunities for us to distribute content more efficiently and effectively worldwide to meet consumers' interests. It's interesting to see today, but consumers today are demanding access to content in ways that they never had before because content has created this great authorship, as I mentioned earlier. Consumers are in effect using the power of technology to start to dictate timing to market and price to market of content that in the past they actually had no influence over at all. It was mostly a means of passive consumption rather than active consumption. Now, the Walt Disney Company is unique in many respects because we are the only true global brand in the entertainment business. And this is a great competitive advantage given the dynamic that I just described, because as platforms proliferate the market, they need leading brands like ours to drive consumer adoption and to build market share. Likewise, consumers seek out leading brands to cut through the clutter of choice, which we see more and more these days. And so we're extremely focused as a company on allocating capital, not just on creativity, but on branded content. And you'll see much more emphasis at the Walt Disney Company on investment against Disney, ESPN, and ABC, our three leading brands, than on many of the other brands that we've owned in the past. And whether through it's the Apple deal with iPod, or broadband internet services, or digital cinema, or new mobile devices, or flat panel high-definition televisions, Disney is going to continue to distribute its creative assets or create new platform-specific content to best take advantage of these emerging distribution mediums and consumer trends. And while we will continue to respect and seek to create value for our current distribution partners, some of whom are actually in the room today, we have a great Hearthstone TV station in Boston, by the way, WCTV, which is what we call a traditional distribution partner. We also believe we have to move an array of our creative assets onto emerging platforms as well to serve consumers who are accessing media in many new ways. It's really important for us that we continue to respect the traditional platforms to reach people, but because people are accessing media today in many new ways, we also have to occupy space there, which creates a pretty interesting dynamic between ourselves and our traditional partners, because they're facing a threat from these new platforms that in some ways we're aiding and abetting. So you can imagine some of the conversations that we have today with movie theater owners, television affiliates, mass retailers like Walmart, who have been used to a relatively exclusive relationship with in the past. That relationship is now being challenged rather significantly. Now, with all this in mind, we're committed as a company, generally speaking, to experiment strategically and to invest wisely when a compelling new opportunity arises so that we can lead the market rather than follow. We think that there's a real advantage to moving first these days, as we did with Apple in October. Our focus as a company in general is not just on creativity, but on innovation. That also means we have to take a fair amount of calculated risks. And though we may not succeed with every new initiative, we're testing new business models, striving to deepen our relationships with consumers, and learning from all these efforts in order to position ourselves as a true modern media company and to deliver the necessary organic growth that our shareholders demand. Our internet strategy is probably a great example in this direction, because there's more traffic and ad revenue and commerce shifting to the internet, no surprise. So we're aggressively developing rich media destinations that offer far more immersive and multidimensional experiences with Disney, ABC, and ESPN. And we believe our ability to aggregate content and experiences around these powerful brands will increase traffic and provide new revenue opportunities, and also deepen our relationship with our consumers. Through these online destinations, consumers will watch ABC, Disney, ESPN programming, they can shop for our products, participate in robust online communities, and much, much more, all based on the personal interest in our broad array of creative assets. So today, for instance, if you went to abc.com, you could watch episodes of Lost, Desperate Housewives, to name a few, on that service, something that was not existent at all in the recent past and probably unheard of not too long ago. And these programs are free to consumers with advertiser support. So for advertisers, this complementary platform provides another marketing opportunity which we think offers great potential for new revenue growth. And unlike banner ads or paid search on the internet, our internet ads are fully embedded with our content, provide viewers with the ability to interact with the advertiser without slowing the speed of the commercial or our program delivery. Now, since its launch earlier this month, that little experiment on abc.com with 4 shows, we've seen consumer usage that is extraordinary. We've actually had about 3 million programs streamed in just the last 3 weeks on that service, only 4 programs available, which is fairly telling. And although abc.com offers an ad-supported model today, we're going to be flexible in terms of our other business models and may introduce video on demand, paid subscription services, a variety of other things that are going to basically offer consumers many, many different ways to access our content, in some cases to pay for it. But what's most critical to us is that we distribute that content on a well-timed, well-priced basis on platforms that offer great consumer experience and an appropriate environment of protection for our content. That's something the music industry missed. They basically failed to understand that the consumer had essentially accumulated much more authority, much more power, and was demanding not only more value for their price, but easier access to music, downloaded via the internet, a perfect example, or the ability to buy a single song instead of a multiple song CD. The music industry instead was more focused on defensive measures to fight piracy and how they protect the traditional retail relationship. They completely missed the market opportunity, and that's one of the reasons why their business decreased as much as it did in the earlier part of this decade. And this is basically what led us to be the first major entertainment company to be on the video iPod, and we believe it's going to lead to many other opportunities in the future. For those of you who may not have experienced this, Apple launched something called iTunes, which is essentially software and a destination on the internet, and combined it with really great hardware called the iPod to offer initially music over these portable devices on the computer. And then last October they introduced us a video version of this. Relatively simple device to use, small in nature, fits into a pocket with a small screen with very high quality. Many of us grew up in big television sets, or I guess in some of our cases, smaller black and white sets in our house that got bigger as we aged. So it's somewhat antithetical to us to envision anyone watching a television show or a movie on a screen that's basically this big on an iPod. But we've experienced since October about 6 to 7 million video downloads ourselves of a limited number of shows on this platform, and have watched in great awe as our children's generation devours product on those devices, obviously willing not just to adapt new technology or adopt new technology quicker, but willing to essentially access media in a much different environment, in a much different way. And we have to be extremely mindful of that when we run companies like this today, because to succeed as we see it, it's essential that we continuously evaluate not only our business models, but this consumer behavior, which is clearly bringing incredible change to our markets. There's an important lesson to be learned that is proven time and time and again, and that's that no single business or industry can actually stand in the way of technology. And so maintaining the status quo or expecting that consumption is never going to change would be a huge mistake and would clearly prevent us from taking advantage of what we see in terms of consumer trends today, or trends that we believe will be in place in the future. Now, in the movie business, there's been a huge amount of debate about the impact of technology on the consumer, and particularly you hear a lot these days about what we call the window for theatrical exhibition. That's essentially the amount of time that theaters essentially have exclusivity over when consumers can actually consume a movie. Today, the average movie is on a movie screen for a few months, but the protected window is roughly about 3.5 months. That means that that movie is not made available to any other consumers for that period of time. The next window is typically what we call home video, where you have the ability to buy those movies in DVD form. But because consumers are starting to exert more power in general, they're demanding access to movies on new platforms much quicker. And there's a fair amount of pressure on the industry these days to essentially shorten the window that movies actually appear in theaters and move movies to new platforms much quicker. Pretty interesting, again, because of the tension that I cited earlier between ourselves and traditional business partners. And the challenge, in a way, is to balance the importance of those relationships with the importance of essentially being relevant to the consumer and making sure that your product is out there well-timed and well-priced, not just for consumption purposes, but also to combat piracy. The more we essentially try to prevent people from gaining access to our content under legitimate circumstances, the more challenging we get, and the more risk we take from a piracy perspective, because the power that I cited earlier is also being used to gain access to our product under illegitimate circumstances, what we call piracy, or theft of intellectual content or intellectual property, which is pretty interesting. So what we're doing basically is advocating that we move product to market faster in subsequent windows to not only better our business, but also to serve the consumer better and to present piracy. One of the things that's also interesting about the movie business today is the advent or the impact of special effects. You see today probably more investment in special effects to essentially help tell stories than ever before. This is great for us because another goal of ours, I mentioned earlier, is to use technology to enhance the consumer experience. Using special effects is one way to do that. Offering television in high definition is another way to do that. The kind of technology that we apply in our theme parks to make our attractions more memorable and more compelling, in some cases simply more more thrilling is another way to do that. But on the movie side, we're really encouraging the use of digital technology in terms of the projection of that film in movie theaters itself. We think it's incumbent upon the movie industry in general, both the theater owners and the content providers, to improve the quality of the experience when you go to a movie, and one way to do it is by using technology to basically improve the quality of the movie itself on the screen. So as much as we value the theater experience and our exhibition partners, as an industry, we believe not only do we have to carefully monitor what's going on with consumer behavior and prepare to adapt accordingly, but we're also exhorting those theater operators to invest accordingly to make sure the movie experience is as great as it can be. I mentioned earlier new markets, particularly China and India. We operate in an incredibly changing world on a global basis, thanks in part to digital technology, but also major changes in markets and economies and consumer behavior. You see it a lot in India and China, but many other growing markets as well. Russia, a good example of that. And while globalization in general presents a tremendous array of challenges for our company, because entering these new markets is not for the faint of heart, we believe we've got huge opportunities as a company to better penetrate these markets. Walt Disney was actually quite a visionary. In the 30s and 40s, he brought a lot of Disney's content to these markets. He actually brought Snow White to China in the 1940s. And so the Disney brand, thanks in part to Walt, has achieved great brand breadth, meaning we're known throughout the world, but we really haven't achieved brand depth in a lot of these markets, partially because they were markets that were difficult to enter either for regulatory reasons or because the infrastructure wasn't there, whether it was mass retail or mass media, to really penetrate the markets. We're now seeing opportunities because of the build-out of infrastructure, changes in regulation, growth of economies that we've never seen before. And the Disney brand, thanks really to Walt Disney and his efforts in the 30s and 40s, has incredible license to occupy space in these markets, because the Disney brand not only is generally known, but because we're generally viewed as politically correct or friendly no matter what the ideology of the local government. So we're growing significantly our investment in these markets to better take advantage of the opportunities. We've opened offices in China and India, most recently in Russia, and our actions over the past few years are, in many respects, very similar to what Walt did in the 40s. He traveled to Latin America, for instance, in an effort to better understand the markets there and to assess the opportunities, which back in the 40s was no easy task. And he felt that the visits that he made to markets around the world were incredibly important, because not only did he get a sense for how distinct the cultures were, but he actually discovered talent in those markets and stories and things that essentially he could mine for years to come to basically build some of his own creative ventures. And so it's for those reasons that Disney product has traveled so well over the years, whether it was Snow White in theaters in China or the fact we've been able to launch a Disney Channel in India today. And one of the principal ways that we're adding depth to those markets for our brands is by making strategic investments in local content. So we're not just making content in the United States and slapping local language soundtracks on and exporting it to these markets. We're actually starting to create content, Disney branded, in fact, in some of these markets. We're making a movie right now in China called The Magic Board, which is going to be the first ever Disney movie that is produced in China. We're considering making films in Bollywood, which is India's version of Hollywood, and in Latin America, something that was unheard of for American companies in the past, where they just made movies in the United States and exported them. We feel that we've got huge opportunities there as well. I'll cite a few examples of China in particular to give you an idea of how the company is looking at the growth opportunity. We opened Hong Kong Disneyland just last September. That's how we were able to sell as many metric tons of rice in the last 10 months as we have. We actually couldn't get enough rice for Hong Kong Disneyland initially, just amazed at the level of consumption. And during its first 9 months of operation, the resort has received among the highest guest satisfaction scores that we've seen anywhere in the world at a Disney theme park, which points not just to the quality of our product, but the general word-of-mouth marketing and the overall knowledge of Disney, which is pretty amazing. And to improve attendance, we're also aggressively marketing on the mainland. Now, the goal is for about 30 to 40% of the people who visit Hong Kong Disneyland to be from the mainland, which is also no easy task, because not only do you have some barriers to entry in terms of travel restrictions, but Clearly, there are economic issues that we've got to deal with, although as spendable income grows and money being spent on entertainment grows, that barrier to entry is starting to come down. The other thing that's interesting is people show up relatively uneducated. They come from a market that we haven't penetrated as deeply as we need to, and so we ask them to enjoy a theme park attraction based on the character Buzz Lightyear, and they have no idea who Buzz Lightyear even was. So you can imagine the array of challenges that we have. It is a multilingual park, though, Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. And we have taken a number of steps to make it user-friendly culturally to that culture. But it's clearly an experience that we've never quite had before. And it does have its array of challenges. Some other things that we're doing in China, we're bringing Lion King to the stage in Shanghai in July. I mentioned earlier that one of our plays was seen by 33 million people worldwide. That is the Lion King. We've opened up 2,600 Disney corner merchandise locations across the mainland, and we have plans to add 60% more by the end of this year. Amazing growth of mass retail in that market, real interest in Disney-branded merchandise as well. Disney characters, games, and ringtones are now available on an array of mobile services, including China Mobile. Our locally produced Disney.com family entertainment destination is up and running. And I mentioned that we're working on our first Disney feature film there. And so China is a huge opportunity for us, one that we're investing in today for long-term growth, and something we believe we're going to be able to duplicate in other markets, whether it's through Latin America or in India or in Russia. As our strategic priorities are put into action in general, it's also important, particularly in a city where we have so many shareholders, that I talk a little bit about financial performance, because in the end, while quality of our content, integrity of our people are incredibly important, the ultimate measure of our success is the shareholder value that we deliver and the growth that we're able to deliver to our shareholders over the long term. And so we're looking not just to deepen our relationship with our consumers, but to deepen our relationship with our investors as well, spending more time in accessible ways to our shareholders, having more dialogue, particularly as our businesses change as much as we believe they're going to change. It's really important to explain to shareholders these days what the impact of this dizzying array of new technology and changing consumer behavior is likely to have on Disney. We're finding that's been a particularly effective tool in increasing confidence in the Walt Disney Company among our shareholder group. We're also prepared, as we've demonstrated with a lot of our initiatives, to move wisely and quickly in order to respond to rapid changes in the marketplace. That goes a long way with shareholders today. And in order to do so, we've changed the structure of the company. We're placing more authority on business units and more accountability rather than just on the core corporation. We had a fairly centralized approach to managing Disney for quite a long period of time, which went a long way in terms of our ability to manage the quality of the Disney brand, but ended up being a bit of an obstacle in terms of experimentation, innovation, and really moving the businesses out there in the marketplace as fast as we needed to. And so we made a lot of changes in that regard. In summation, I'm very realistic about the challenges that lie ahead for our company. I'm extremely enthusiastic about our creative capabilities, certainly enthusiastic about assimilating Pixar in the company. I guess as the author of our strategic direction, you'd expect that I'd be enthusiastic and a supporter of that, but I actually believe that it's resonating not just in the behavior of the people who work for us, but resonating among our shareholder base, since we're one of the only global media companies that has actually articulated a very specific strategic set of priorities in public. We also have proven that adapting to new business conditions within an established company, while not easy, is not only essential, but is a priority. And we're making creative excellence and consumers our primary focal points. And that orientation, we think, is going to help us immeasurably to adapt and innovate, ultimately to benefit our shareholders. So we've got a fair amount of momentum these days. Bob, thanks for mentioning our most recent earnings. Our businesses in general have some wind at their backs. They'll be forever challenged, I'm sure, but this is a generally good time for the company. And going forward, I want to ensure, certainly all of our shareholders, but all of the consumers of Disney in the room, that we're admired today for not just our performance, but for the quality and integrity of our products and our people. And I want to be admired not just for those attributes, but for the fact that we're modern and innovative and willing to take risks and not bound by old rules or outdated or habits or tradition. We also think we need to be user-friendly, a company that we want people to work with and work for, partner with us, own our stock, whatever. And I thought I would leave you before I take questions with a quote from a guy named Walt Disney that I recently came across, an essay he wrote in 1956. I found this interesting because in 1956, Walt was asked to write an essay for a time capsule that was supposed to go in the Colgate-Palmolive building in New York. We're not sure whether it ever made it to that time capsule. And he was asked to predict what the state of entertainment would look like 50 years hence. Well, it's 2006 today, 50 years since Walt was asked to make that prediction. And he said that people will need and demand amusement, refreshment, and pleasant relaxation from daily tasks and frets as much in your day as they have in ours. And though 50 years have passed, I think you can look for Disney to continue to deliver differentiated quality entertainment to satisfy Walt's predictions of the future. And that is our goal, is really to offer people amusement, refreshment, and daily relaxation from all of your daily tasks and frets. Interesting use of the word, by the way. And with that, I thank you very much. And I know there are some mics in the room, and for the benefit of my limited hearing and the hearing of people in the room, if you could wait till the mic is brought to you.
Hi, my name is Gil Sullivan, and I'm class of '66 CDA at Boston College. And I was just wondering about how you were talking so freely about India and China, and that's about 2.5 billion people out of 6. It's a nice market. I was wondering if Disney has any plans to pay back Boston, maybe in a small, meaningful way, to put what we have in Ireland. Mr. Roy Disney's been good to Ireland, and there's a place called 6 Mile Bridge over there. Well, there's something out there called Six Flags or something, right? And that's not really the quality of your company. And we have islands out here. This is not a laughing matter. We have some islands out here that could be developed. You missed the expressway. The Kennedys got the tar, they got the grass. So we're going to go this way. And wouldn't it be nice to have a Disney theme park out in Boston Harbor sometime in my lifetime?
Well, that's a lofty goal. Good question, though. As you'd expect, and it isn't a laughing matter. I know there are a number of markets in the world that covet a Disney theme park. Shanghai is one. Many others, by the way. And we take all these requests somewhat seriously. In some cases, we go into full-fledged development mode, study local economies and trends, really assess local infrastructure, whether it's transportation or waste removal, look at the employee base that we might be able to hire, check weather patterns and the like. And for the most part, we've concluded over time that with all this analysis, that putting a theme park in a weather-challenged location. That's the worst thing I'll say about Boston here today, I promise, is probably a mistake. Interestingly enough, we put a theme park in Paris in 1992. It was vying for Barcelona at the time to be the home of the Disney theme park. And we were enamored of France and Paris for a variety of very legitimate reasons at the time. And the park is actually the #1 tourist destination in Europe, which is a great thing. But the challenges of operating a park in those weather conditions, I imagine Paris and Boston not quite the same. It's a little bit more temperate than Boston, but the challenges are fairly great on the business. Cost of operation is higher. The seasonality or cyclicality of attendance is a little bit wider, and that makes it a little bit harder to manage. So for the most part, the markets that we're looking at expanding in are, I'll call, more weather-friendly than Boston might be. We are, at the same time, considering new markets to open theme parks. We are considering new site-based entertainment concepts. Some we've already implemented. We have 2 cruise ships. If you've ever had a chance to experience a Disney cruise, it's pretty special from a family vacation perspective. And while some of the other concepts we're looking at don't necessarily float, we think that there might be some other ways to reach people in new markets without building a multi-billion-dollar theme park or a cruise ship, and so we're considering those. I don't believe Boston is on the list of markets that we're thinking about at the moment, but if we end up with a concept that's fairly portable in nature, meaning adaptable to different markets. This is certainly a large metropolitan area, one that's been good for Disney for more reasons than just our shareholder base over the years, and I'm sure it'll get consideration.
You mentioned that the consumer is king. One of the routes to empowerment of the consumer has been the development of new technologies like DVR and TiVo to do time shifting and avoid commercials. Could you say what you see 5 years out in terms of the impact of that on the relationship between networks and advertisers and the impact on the bottom line?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge right now that traditional networks that are only advertiser supported and that advertising that's relied on television is facing right now. The DVR or the PVR, which is a personal video recorder or a digital video recorder, sometimes known as a TiVo because they were one of the first in, is an unbelievably compelling consumer proposition, both in terms of its usability or how user-friendly it is and what it ultimately affords the consumer in terms of flexibility of watching TV. I'm a big believer in it as a consumer. I love using it. I think what you'll end up seeing is many other ways that people are going to be able to watch these shows if they missed them before. Some will be the result of people actually setting a TiVo or a PVR device so that they are actually making an appointment to have something recorded and to watch it subsequently. Many other people will do different things. They may go to a website, as we're offering today on Disney.com, and stream one of the programs. They may go to iTunes and for $1.99 buy one of them. They may subscribe to a service that we may share with one of our affiliates that gives people the ability to access a Disney show or a show on your local station in Boston for a period of time. It's too early to tell exactly what the very specific marketplace conditions will be, but it's clear to us that the primary form of watching will continue to be a broadcast network advertiser supported, but there will be many more ways to do it, and we think in the end it will raise consumption, which is a good thing. What we're seeing with people that own PVRs is they watch more TV. It's just easier to, essentially manage watching by using the recording device. And that's, in general, for a company that's in the business of making TV shows and content, that we see as great. How we deal with advertisers is a whole other question. And we're in deep discussions with them on that very subject.
I think there's one more question.
Hi, I was wondering if you could tell us if you see further consolidation with the entertainment industry, please?
Further consolidation in the entertainment industry. There's been a fair amount of consolidation over the last decade. We actually participated in some of that when at Capital Cities ABC we sold to the Walt Disney Company. I can't really speak for the rest of the industry, although my guess would be that you wouldn't see dramatically increased consolidation. The Walt Disney Company's case, we look very opportunistically at acquisitions. We're not looking to acquire assets just to get bigger. We don't have any strategic holes at the moment, so that we don't have a burning need to acquire anything so that we are successful strategically, although Pixar certainly was one of those. I never believe that bigger is necessarily better in the entertainment or the media space. The best approach is quality over quantity in general, and that's what we're focused on. I'm not suggesting we wouldn't buy something if it weren't the right price or if it didn't fit into the company strategically, but at the moment, we're not planning to be what I call a significant consolidator. Thank you very much.
Bob, for a great presentation, and thanks all much. And in keeping the spirit of the CEO Club, we're wrapping up. Thanks.